Hello, and welcome to part two of our series on the housing inventory and affordability crisis. I'm Jennifer Vucetic, the 2024 chair of the National Association of Realtors State and Local Issues Policy Committee. I'm joined today by our committee vice chair, Lynn Wheeler, and our NAR state and local policy representative and committee staff executive, Drew Myers. In part one of our discussion series, we heard from the housing policy experts on a variety of solutions to address the national housing affordability challenges that we are facing in most markets across the U.S. We also shared some of the work that NAR is doing to address inventory and affordability challenges, including supporting the development of Housing Supply Accelerator Playbook and working to advance bipartisan legislation in Congress to increase housing inventory. Today, we're thrilled to welcome two esteemed mayors to discuss what affordability looks like in their communities, how to overcome barriers to increasing supply, and how realtors can be good partners to their local elected officials on this issue. Lynn, please introduce our guests.
Thanks, Jen. Today, we'll welcome Mayor Corey Woods of Tempe, Arizona, and Mayor Mark Shepard of Clearfield City, Utah. Mayor Woods was elected mayor of the city of Tempe in March 2020. In his professional career, he is executive director of the community relations at ASU and Preparatory Academy. Prior to being elected to serve as mayor of Tempe, Woods served on the city council from 2008 to 2016. In 2022, Mayor Woods was named Advocate of the Year by Arizona Housing Coalition for his advocacy work expanding affordable and workforce housing opportunities. He currently serves as the vice chair of the U.S. Conference of Mayors Housing and Community Development Committee and as the co-chair of the National Leagues of Cities Housing Supply Accelerator Steering Committee. He is also a member of the mayors and CEOs for the U.S. Housing Investment Coalition. Mayor Mark Shepard was elected mayor of Clearfield City in 2013. And prior to being elected mayor, he served 6 years on city council and 9 years on the planning commission. In his private life, Mayor Shepard is a realtor and principal broker for Shepard Real Estate Group, a local independent real estate brokerage focusing primarily on military relocation. Mayor Shepard was appointed by Utah's governor to serve on the Military Installation Development Authority, which has responsibility for development of enhanced use lease properties throughout Utah. He has also served in leadership on various committees at the National League of Cities and is a member of the Housing Supply Accelerator Steering Committee. Mayor Woods and Mayor Shepard, welcome.
Thank you so much for having us.
Mayors, thank you for joining us today. As we've just heard, you both participated in the Housing Supply Accelerator, an initiative that NAR supported. Mayor Woods, tell us a little about the accelerator and the playbook of locally led solutions.
So the accelerator came about because we were trying to figure out a way at the National League of Cities how to create a policy manual for mayors and city council members from across the country to be able to use to increase both housing supply and housing affordability, but also with an understanding and a focus on we have different laws state by state. There are things that you can do in New York or in California that you can't necessarily do in Arizona due to statewide preemptions and things of that nature. And that's sort of the challenge when you talk about kind of a patchwork quilt of laws across all 50 states. But we tried to come up with a way to give people a toolbox of options that they could use to find ways to decrease regulation, create more affordable workforce and market rate housing in both the for sale and for rent categories. So the main thing we try to tell people is that there might be a solution that works really well for Mayor Shepard that might not work very well for me for whatever reason. Maybe it's just the nature of our respective populations. Maybe it has to do with city ordinances or existing state law. But there is something in that policy manual for anyone who really has a heart for creating more housing and is willing to show the courage to step up and do it. And so that's really the spirit under which the Housing Supply Accelerator Playbook was formed. I know we've already utilized a lot of elements of it here in the city of Tempe, and I hope that other mayors and city council members across the country have also found it to be a very useful and effective tool.
Thank you so much. Mayor Shepherd, tell us about your experience participating in the accelerator and why it's important to have realtors involved in Housing Supply Accelerator.
I think I'm having some Wi-Fi issues with you guys here. Everybody seems to be frozen, so I'm hoping you can hear me.
Yep. Yep.
Good. Housing Supply Accelerator was a phenomenal experience. I mean, as we brought together people from every industry, anybody that had a hand in housing, that's crucial. I don't think that that's ever been done where we brought planners and cities and realtors and developers and finance and every aspect of housing together at one point. And it was crucial for us to have the realtors involved. We needed to be able to, I mean, nobody's closer to the issue than the realtors are. I mean, the cities understand, but the realtors have our hands in it every single day. We know what the needs are. We know what our clients are looking for. And so to be able to bring people together and look at things not just from a development issue or development side, but also to look at productivity, at finance itself, and why can't we get certain products financed? Why can't we get certain things to the market? Where are those issues? And it was fantastic to bring each of those industries together and to be able to talk and to have the realtors at the table being able to say, here's what we're seeing and the reasons we're facing problems right now. We were there at the beginning. We were there when things started to go south, and we're still trying to deal with it. And we have a lot of realtors out there trying to make a living that really struggle when there's not any supply.
So, Mayor Shepherd, we'll stay with you for a minute. And as a realtor, you said it, realtors understand housing supply and affordability challenges that we're facing nationally and at home. So tell us about personally in Clearfield City, what does the housing market look like in your area and how has affordability changed over the past few years?
You know, it's interesting. Our housing market is still booming. We have such a strong demand. Clearfield is the home to Hill Air Force Base. And so Hill Air Force Base it controls the missile program, the ICBM program throughout the United States. And so it's all run through Hill. And so the new development of the Sentinel missile, which will replace the Minuteman, is also based at Hill. So Northrop Grumman just built 1 million square feet of office and brought in over 5,000 jobs. And every one of those people was looking for a house. And so our demand is still there. Our supply is absolutely horrible. And obviously rates are killing us. And so between those two things, affordability is a critical issue for us right now. We're still seeing an acceleration in the market. Now, we're not seeing it like we were 2 to 3 years ago, where we had multiple offers on every single house. We just don't have it. That's not our case most of the time anymore, but we are still appreciating. We still have a high demand, and our inventory just isn't where it needs to be right now. Couple that with obviously where interest rates have gone in the last little while. And, you know, when you've got high prices and skyrocketing interest rates, the two just don't mix. I was talking to some folks yesterday as I spoke on a panel that in Utah, at least in the last several years, 75% of the people either purchased or rewrote their mortgage for under 4%. Mm-hmm. So 75% of the homes are under 4% right now. The desire to move, even if they want to, the ability to move and take on a higher payment at a 6 or 7 or whatever that rate is, it becomes almost impossible. And so we've got that weird coupling of scenarios right now where we still have a strong demand. And so those that are buying are buying. They're buying because they have to. A lot of them are putting it off because they can't afford what's out there, but they're still buying. But we have this huge problem with those who are in homes being able to move up, especially when we start looking at seniors that are in their homes. A lot of them own their homes. They want to downsize their homes. They can't. Even with the huge amount of equity in there, they'd have to take on another mortgage for another 30 years to be able to afford anything. And they're just not willing to do that. So yeah, it's causing us some concern.
Sure, absolutely. Mayor Shepherd, thanks for that response. And Mayor Woods, what about you? What does housing affordability look like in Tempe? And what have you been able to do in your time in your office to address housing affordability challenges there?
So housing affordability is a real challenge in the city of Tempe at this point. I mean, it's one of those things where it's not just a problem in Tempe; it's a problem, frankly, across our state and across the country. When I first moved to Tempe 21 years ago, back in 2003, that was at the point that Arizona was still a very affordable place to live. And a lot of people were moving here because of that housing affordability. And then around roughly, I would say 2015, 2016, housing values just shot through the roof. And I tell people many times it's because, the secret's out and people recognize that we're a great place to live. And so more and more people are coming here each and every day. But it means that also the housing supply has not kept up with the demand of all the people who are currently here and all the people who want to continue to move here. We have a lot of Fortune 500 companies that are relocating to Arizona and hiring more people. And so that also becomes a challenge. Once again, it's a great thing that we're getting all these jobs and we're huge on the semiconductor industry at this point and a lot of very innovative technologies that are really rapidly growing. But at the same time, it means we don't have enough housing to really have all the people who are coming here live here comfortably. So we've tried to do a number of things in the city of Tempe. We developed a program in January of 2021 called Hometown for All, which is a plan that kind of combines a couple of different funding streams without raising anyone's taxes, but that sort of found a way to sequester funds that the city council can use to acquire additional property within our city and do a lot of the environmental remediation on city-owned land to get it ready to partner with the private sector to do affordable or workforce housing development. And that program has proven to be very successful. We've even won a few local and national awards for the creation of that program, and we're very excited to continue to grow it. We also, this coming November 5th, have a bond question on our ballot in Tempe for $32 million that is specifically set aside for affordable housing. And so our residents they should have their ballots within the next week or so. And so I know that they're going to be very thoughtfully considering that bond question along with two others. And so, but that question is trying to find a way to really give a pretty massive infusion into that separate affordable housing fund so we can really be an even bigger player out there when it comes to acquisition and rehab opportunities here within the city. Our big challenge is that Tempe is about 40 square miles and totally landlocked. So there isn't any more room to grow out. All the growth has to be up. And so that's sort of our challenge. And but also the scarcity of available land means that any piece of land that comes available on the open market is extremely expensive. And so the city just sort of felt that we needed to be a player in that market because we're not looking to make any kind of a profit. We're just simply looking to make sure that we maintain housing diversity and that anyone who wants to live here, regardless of income or occupation, can still afford to call Tempe their home. And so we're very excited about that. And look, and there's other workforce housing and affordable housing projects that we've approved during my last nearly 4.5 years as mayor, and so I can talk about those a little bit later in the program as well. But I'm excited. I'm excited for what's going on here in Tempe and a lot of what I consider to be the very proactive, forward-thinking solutions that we've implemented. But definitely, it is a real challenge, and it's one we're going to have to remain vigilant on.
Well, sure. That sounds great. Mayor Shepherd, this year in the Utah legislature, they took bold steps to encourage housing affordability. What's your take on the state legislature package that passed? And what role do you think states have in the housing supply conversation?
Well, let's put it this way. Things take a while to germinate. We need to see them through. For the things that we just did in the legislative session this year, yeah, to call them bold is nice. They were aggressive. We created some new programs that we really hope will be able to take hold and help create housing supply. Nothing happens overnight. It's going to take some time to see these happen. We implemented one, I want to say 3 years ago, might even be four, is a phenomenal program. but it has taken until this year to see the first project really start to come to fruition. And so the concern that we would have on a city side on that is that we keep putting in programs, but we're not really giving them enough time to settle before we try to put something else in. State has a huge role in housing. They can do some great things. Most of that, I think, falls in that realm of programs. One of the programs that we implemented this year is a first home investment zone, which allows a city to apply with the developers to create an investment zone that is over multiple properties. And it requires a certain amount of affordable housing. It requires a certain amount of home ownership that is deed restricted for, I think, 20 or 30 years. It has some strong requirements to it, but it is, in return for that, it is a pretty smooth process to receive the tax increment. And it allows that developer to go in and be able to capture that tax increment over a longer period of time and truly create some housing. We haven't seen it. We're just now, again, it was passed this year. We're starting to see some developers interested in it, but no one's actually put it to use yet. So we're crossing our fingers and hoping that this does what we planned it would. This was a joint effort between the League of Cities, between the Realtor Association, the Home Builders Association, together to put these ideas down, and we're all hopeful. We put 3 or 4 different programs together. We put an infrastructure investment loan together so that developers can go in and use state rates, the same rates that the cities would receive if we were applying for bonds, to be able to do the infrastructure. And so we're doing everything we can, everything we can think of. It is amazing to see everybody come to the table with new ideas. And again, I wish one single idea would work. I wish we could, flip a switch and say, there's the housing. But it took us a long time to see this problem germinate, and it's going to take a while to see the solutions percolate and actually create the results that we're hoping that we see. There's good stuff out there, and I've seen good things in every state. I was back in DC a couple of weeks ago speaking with 3 mayors about housing specifically, and we talked rentals and we talked home ownership, and I was there with Mayor Wood's counterparts, Mayor Giles from Mesa, and I'll never forget the one thing he said. The quote of the day was, housing is not a problem. Housing is the problem. It's not a Mesa problem. It's not a Tempe problem. It's not a Clearfield problem. It is an everybody problem. It's one of the biggest things we face, and it's going to take everybody to come up with the right solutions to fix this problem. And anybody that thinks we can turn that switch and tomorrow it's done is thinking the wrong way. This is a long-term solution that's going to take, and a lot of things will change in that time. It's really hard to just say this idea is going to be great, because it might be. But we talk often about the silver tsunami that's coming and what that does to homeownership. What that does when our seniors free up housing, and all of a sudden we have more housing than we anticipated. Now we've got double the housing. We've created a whole bunch of first-time home buyer homes, and we've brought the others into the market. Things will change, and hopefully we'll see this. We've always seen it through. We've been down roads before where we had housing shortages, and I'm 100% confident we're going to get it back.
Thank you. We hear that all the time, that, seniors can't afford to sell because of the tax implications, and they're doing life estates and everything just to not sell their homes to have that tax penalty. Don't we wish that it was a one size fits all, for every state? We could solve all these problems. So Mayor Woods, you touched on this a little bit. There are very important reasons for encouraging housing reform to allow for a variety of housing types, including the impact on affordability and ending exclusionary zoning, which perpetuates racial segregation. This was covered in part 1 of this series, but not everyone is excited about increasing housing supply as we are. This question is for both of you. Have you encountered or heard about pushback from so-called NIMBYs? And what advice do you have for other elected officials who may encounter similar challenges? Likewise, what can housing advocates do to support elected officials and counter NIMBYism? Mayor Woods, we'll start with you.
So I'm smiling so big because I just had an experience like this just about 48 hours or so ago. So we actually had a 229 unit multifamily complex that was 100% workforce housing. It did get approved just this past Tuesday by the city council on a unanimous 7-0 vote. And so that was wonderful to see, not just myself, but the entire council show our support to make sure that our workforce has ample housing within our city. But there was plenty of opposition to it. The actual meeting itself took 4.5 hours, and I think we had at least probably roughly 2 to 2.5 hours of public comment on this issue alone. And most of the public comment is sort of the things that you expect. It's, this is too big. There's not enough parking. People are going to park in my neighborhood. Building housing is going to create too much traffic. And so there are all these things that you sort of hear. Apartments bring more crime. Because those people are more predisposed to committing criminal acts. We even had someone in the newspaper say, these people are more prone to steal my Amazon packages. So I mean, we heard all of this stuff play out in my email inbox through voicemails that myself and my assistant got, through public comments that people made, and through comments people made to the media. And so, one of the things this is my 13th year of being in elected office in some way, shape, or form between the city council and being mayor. And people know me, they know I'm always willing to try to find a way to come up with a solution if we can find one. If you come to me with a couple of things that you're concerned about a specific project, I will sit down with you from the minute the sun comes up till the minute it goes down at night, trying to figure out what could be the new color palette for this building. How could we actually slightly reconfigure the buildings, or how could we find a way to add more parking, or maybe do permit parking in your neighborhood to ensure that there's no spillover from this development into your adjacent single family neighborhood. But the challenge becomes, if you're coming at me and there's no one or two people who are kind of leading the opposition or some of the concerns, and people are just throwing stuff against the wall, and it's 12, 13, 14, 15 solutions. And even once you actually cite facts, no one seems to be deterred from what they kind of came in to talk about in the very beginning. I can't help you, and I can't solve your problem, because I can't solve 15 issues with a project that I don't think has 15 issues to begin with. So if you really want to help me solve the issue, you have to come with a couple of very specific things that you would like solved, and I will do my darndest to try to frankly solve them. But once again, the project got approved, and I'm very excited. This is a group that does workforce housing without low-income housing tax credits and without needing to get any kind of subsidy. So we know that they've got private money coming in that will help them to get that project to the market a lot faster than someone who might have to wait for the tax credits to come around. So I'm very excited about this project breaking ground and all these units coming online. But so one thing I would say, once again, I keep coming back to it. I think that elected officials who are watching this need to understand that you are always going to get that kind of opposition. And I should also mention, this parcel that we approved this on, it was a nearly 8-acre lot that's been a vacant dirt lot for 47 years, which, not to date myself too much, is longer than I've actually walked the planet Earth. So, I mean, and I'm not here in this role as mayor to encourage the proliferation of vacant dirt lots. We have to find ways to create more housing and build opportunities for people to live, work, and play in our community. And there's no reason why a nearly 8-acre lot in this city that sat vacant for nearly 5 decades should remain that way. It just simply does not make sense. And so I think that it really is critically important that those of us who care about housing and really want to take up this charge, that we understand that we are going to get pushback, and many times very vocal pushback, from surrounding communities and neighbors who are very comfortable with the way that things are and just don't want anything to change. It's just, hey, I know it's a dirt lot. I know it's not generating any tax revenue. I know it's not housing anyone, but I just like things being quiet. It's just peaceful. And I don't want to add, 500 or 1,000 or 1,500 new car trips to this major intersection. I just want quiet, even though I know it's unsightly. I think we're just going to have to continue to do the right thing and follow our own respective, consciences, and push back and say, look, I understand that change is uncomfortable and we like doing things the same way many times, but there are people who need housing, and you elected me to make tough decisions, and I'm going to make one this evening. But to your second question about what can people actually do, If you're a housing advocate and you're in the community, you're not an elected official, you're just a person who you live in the city, you have a small business in our community, I think it's very imperative that you show up to these council meetings and make your voices heard. Because many times the people that we hear from the most, and I don't want to speak for Mayor Shepherd, but I know it tends to be very much how all of us in elected office tend to feel. We hear from the people who feel aggrieved. We hear from the people who are frustrated about things or who don't like something. But for the people who are generally happy with the way that the city's being run, or they are happy with this housing proposal, they typically don't come to the meeting because they're like, well, why would I come to the meeting? I'm happy. I think the council's doing a great job. I think the city's moving in a very positive direction. And I elected you because I think you're going to move the city in the right direction. So why do I need to come sit at a council meeting for 2 hours? But the fact of the matter is, your council members and your mayors, they need to see those people who are housing advocates sitting right in front of them to counter a lot of the negative comments that we're getting from other people who are telling you, leave well enough alone, don't do anything, don't build a single new unit of housing, and don't bring any more people into this community. It's very critically important that there are people writing emails, talking to the press, and most importantly, for, like selfishly, coming to council meetings to make sure, if you are pro housing, that your voices are being heard and that you are standing up and being counted, because it's tremendously helpful to people like me when we have to take tough votes when it comes to increasing housing, to see friendly faces in the audience who we know support what we're doing.
Mayor Shepherd, do you want to comment as well?
No. Mayor Woods said it all. I mean, he's talking about being spot on. NIMBYism is alive and well. It is. It's scary how bad it tends to be at times. But Mayor Woods hit it right on the nail on the head right there at the end. When I have a developer come into the city and it's on a questionable piece of property that I know I'm going to have significant resistance to, my first counsel to that developer is go to the neighbors, talk to the neighbors, and not just talk to them and get their support. But I mean, we just had one come through just in the last 2 weeks that the developer said, yeah, we've got this wonderful project. Your planning commission wasn't thrilled with it. And I said, well, did the neighbors show up? Do you have one neighbor to that project right across the way from it that is going to be adamantly against it? And they said, no, she's on board. And I said, did she show up to the meeting? Well, no, but we had a statement from her. I said, get her to the meeting. My council knows her. They're going to understand exactly who she is. And if she jumps out in support of your project, it's going to soften everything with them. NIMBYism is hard. Nobody likes change. We all bought our homes in a certain place for a certain lifestyle for a certain change, and that's hard for city officials because we want to have that balance. We have to balance that quality of life that our residents have and that they move to our cities for, but at the same time we're dealing with growth and massive amounts of change, and there's no way around the change. It's going to happen, and it's going to be uncomfortable. We put in a form-based code along our major corridors. And I think the reason for its success is that I got residents involved from the very get-go. Unfortunately, it was a 10-year process to get everything implemented. And so by the time that came about, a lot of those residents that were involved from the beginning had moved. And now I have new residents that said, no, this is a terrible design. This is a terrible thing. Why didn't you ever ask us about it? And I said, but I did ask you about it. For 10 years, we went over this. Your neighbors were sitting at the table when we designed it. There's no way around that. There's no way to fix all of that. The problem that we see is public clamor is a big deal. And so when people show up to a city council meeting, they're vocal. And very easy for a council to say, no, we don't, man, I don't want to tick off my neighbors. I got to go to church with those people and they're going to look at me and they're going to chew me out. And I don't know what to do. And so it's really easy to vote no. I've had to counsel my council that, we stick to our guns. We've put plans in place for a reason. Hold to them. Make sure that people are informed. Get in front of the decisions before they're made. Make sure that the neighbors know about them. Get the developers to get the neighbors involved, and make sure that the word is out about what's coming. It tends to soften the blow. It doesn't fix everything. Again, nobody wants it in their backyard. I had a conversation with a couple of residents when we started doing some higher density housing, and these were still single family detached homes. And they said, their initial thing was, these are terrible. It's crime ridden. It's going to be a bad thing because they're small homes. When we explained that that wasn't and the benefits of doing this, the next answer was, well, they're not affordable. Well, they're much more affordable than they would have been if we were doing them on quarter acre lots the way you wanted them to. We've made them as affordable as can be. And then it's, well, I don't like that they're the wrong kind of things. Or that the people that want to complain will complain. It just takes a council and a city to stand to their guns and say, this is the way it is. We're not turning. We can adjust. We can make changes. We can adapt a plan if it makes more sense to do something, because we don't always have all the answers. And I want to make those residents happy. I want to know that they were heard. And if there's changes that can be made, we can change them, but we're not going to derail a project because I have some neighbors show up that are upset.
Well, again, for both of you, and thinking about plans and policy, what's one housing policy idea that both of you hope to implement in your area that will impact inventory or affordability? Mayor Woods, let's start with you.
I'll give you two very quick ones, which are actually just sort of Arizona specific. One is that we are one of 7 states in the entire country that doesn't have access to a tool called inclusionary zoning. And that is a real challenge for us as we build a lot of multifamily units in our community, but don't have the ability to set aside any percentage of those units to be affordable for like a 20 or 30-year period for our teachers or our firefighters or our police officers or service industry workers. And so we're trying very hard this upcoming session to get that prohibition lifted, to give cities and towns the ability in Arizona to create more housing that isn't just simply market rate, but that's for people who are making maybe a little less money. The second thing would be that we are the only state in the entire country that doesn't have access to tax increment financing, which is a tool that's been used across 49 other states to address blighted areas, underserved areas, and to create more commerce, but also to create much needed housing for people who need it. And so that's going to be one of my big focuses for this upcoming legislative session, is getting the preemptions lifted for both inclusionary zoning as well as tax increment financing.
Nice. Okay, Mayor
I
Shepherd.
think the things that we've done, again, we've been very aggressive in the things that we've done as a state and as well as a city. I think two things I would bring out. Again, one, our form-based code has already started to make changes that we implemented, and from day one we started to see changes. We started to see the density come in that we were looking for, both in multifamily and single family, small lot subdivisions. We're a city that's been considered to be just about built out for quite a while. We're about 36,000 residents in Clearfield. But over the past 4.5 years, almost 5 years, we have either entitled, permitted, or built over 4,000 housing units. For a city of 36,000 people, that's an enormous amount of housing. But I found that our biggest successes have come when we as a city take the lead. And so we have looked for pieces of property that we can purchase, assemble, and then ultimately donate if needs be, or sell at a significantly reduced price to the developer that will come in and make sure that the housing that is there is affordable. I think that's going to be our legacy that my council leaves behind, is finding those properties and creating something beautiful out of them.
Thank you. Mayor Shepherd, we're going to continue with you. As a realtor, why should realtors engage their elected officials on housing inventory and affordability crisis? And what value do realtors bring to the conversation?
Realtors have the info. Realtors have the data. That's where we are. We have more data, I think, as realtors than probably just about anybody. But it's how we use that's important. When I was chairing our government affairs committee for our local association, I made sure that every city had a realtor assigned to it. That realtor showed up in a realtor shirt every week, planning commission meeting, council meeting, every time that we could possibly be there, the realtor was there in the audience. Didn't have to speak, just had to be known that he was there, or she. And then once a quarter, we had the realtor stand up and take 3 to 5 minutes and make a presentation on the market specific to that city. So not what was happening in Utah, not what was happening in the nation, but what's happening in Clearfield or Clinton or Sunset or West Point. Here's what's happening in your city. Here's how things are selling. Here's what's happening to values. Here's what's happening overall. And here's the needs that we are seeing as realtors in your city that you don't have. And we're here with ideas. We're here with data. We're here to help any way that we possibly can. I think it's just absolutely crucial that we're together on these things. It's been seen for quite a while, at least in Utah, that realtors and cities are, they have this kind of adversarial relationship where we're not supposed to get along. Realtors are supposed to push new housing and new ideas, and cities, man, we want to stay packed. But we're in a problem. We have a crisis. We have a housing shortage, and it's not solved by the realtors. It's not solved by the cities. It's not solved by the developers. It's all of us together. And I think cities need to understand that and understand that they can look to the realtors for advice and guidance.
I find that so true. I sat on my local town zoning for 10 years, but I feel like it's always the realtors that are on the assessment board and so involved in the community. And yeah, we're all there. And to close us out, Mayor Woods, can you tell us what realtors can do better to engage our elected officials and in the inventory and affordability crisis?
I think it's really just making sure that you stay in front of your elected officials as often as possible. And now when I say as often as possible, I'm not saying every week, as I would not tell any group to do that, because at some point, if people are back every week, it's like sometimes those people are the frequent flyers, and at some point, the voices can become like Charlie Brown's teacher of like wah wah wah, But what I would say is that it is really important, though, to make sure that you have relationships with your local elected officials and that you can provide advice and guidance from your position as a realtor. Because, Mayor Shepherd is a realtor. I am not. And so he has knowledge about this area that I don't have. And so I have the opportunity to learn from him when it comes to his experiences and his expertise in this world. And so from my perspective, I might be the mayor and a member of our city council, but I don't have all the answers. And the majority of the great ideas that I get at some point in time were things that I took from some other community or were given to me from a resident or a group that said, hey, have you ever thought about this? Or did you know that there's something in your process when it comes to your planning and zoning code at the city that's frankly outdated or woefully inefficient? I mean, I got a suggestion about that from someone from a restaurateur a couple of days ago about something in our tax and license department that they said the city of Tempe is such an innovative, forward-thinking city, but you have one practice in this one department that seems exceptionally antiquated, and I just want to make sure to bring it to your attention. It's a small thing, but I want you to know. And I said, I really appreciate you letting me know, because quite honestly, I want us to continue to have that reputation. And if there are things that I can do on my end to take things to our city council or to our city manager or our professional staff and see what we can do to update those practices, I'm here for that. If there was nothing to be changed from a public policy standpoint, Mayor Shepherd and I both wouldn't have jobs. But I mean, there are constantly things that need to be tweaked and adjusted to make sure that we are meeting the needs of the residents and business owners and groups like the realtors in present times, but also to set things up for the future, because that's what every person in one of these jobs wants to do. It's to make sure that you're taking care of the people who are here now, but that you're also setting up the community for a bright and prosperous future, even after we're both out of these jobs. And so the biggest thing is just making sure that you're in front of us, that you're telling us about, you're giving us data and statistics, you're giving us policy suggestions and recommendations for things that you think that we could implement in our respective cities that could really help realtors be more successful, and that even most importantly will help us to create much more housing in our communities for people of all different incomes and from all different backgrounds and from all different occupations, because we are in a housing shortage. We have a housing affordability crisis, but the way that we're going to get out of that is to make sure that we build more housing to stabilize and lower prices, and make sure, most importantly, that the people who need to access safe quality housing have the ability to do so.
It's so wonderful to hear that you both have innovation and industry coming to your areas. So that's so encouraging. And we're so lucky to have you as housing champions. And we really appreciate all the work you've done for us and the communities. We're very thankful to have you here today. And this was a fantastic conversation. If you'd like to learn more about NAR, state and local policy, please visit nar.realtor and select state and local advocacy or visit realtorparty.realtor. On behalf of the NAR State and Local Issues Policy Committee and Vice Chair Lynn Wheeler, I'm Jennifer Vucetic, 2024 Chair. Thank you for watching.